Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, navigating the human experience together.
Hafaday, Tiro, and welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and today we are talking about art and healing with local artist Victoria Sewell. Victoria, welcome.
Thank you. It's good
You
to be here.
and your creations.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking time to chat with us today about not only the physical production of art, but the more intrinsic inside meaning of it. Tell us, first of all, a little bit about yourself as an artist.
So I have always had a deep desire to create art since I was very young. My father was someone who could naturally, he was what you would call talented. He could just sit there and make a painting that most people would find impressive. It's just a one-off thing that he would do every few years, and people would look at me and judge my work up to him and think, are you also talented? And that was really hard. And so as soon as I noticed that people were watching my art and judging it, I stopped really making it as much as I could. I focused more on connecting with nature, and then I actually was in school and I was given an assignment to enter a competition where I had to draw something, and I drew the connection between a baby and a parent's hand. And I still don't believe I was naturally extremely talented. It took a lot for me to do that. It did not flow easily, but my desire to have that connection with that moment between the baby and its hand was so strong that you felt that in the piece. And so the competition actually called my parents and told them that I should consider art as my future path. And from there, I studied under an artist who was she was a former lawyer, and art had one answer. So we would look at something and there would be a one answer of how to respond to it. So everything was very hyper-realistic. We mostly worked in graphite. We started to work in color, but it had to be very controlled. And I was so scared at first that she would have to work on my pieces for me some, but as I went with that, it did build my confidence. But by the time I was studying art in college, I looked around me and I felt like there was something missing. My art, people would walk up to it and say, oh, it looks like a photo, it's so amazing, I can only draw stick figures. And it really struck me, what's the point of me being an artist if all I'm doing is making other people feel inferior? And every piece is me just trying to boost my own ego and prove to myself I'm talented enough to do this. So there was this beautiful quote by Robert Henri that I heard. There are moments in the day, moments that we see beyond the ordinary. It was in this hope that the arts were created, signposts towards greater knowledge. And I wrote that on my studio wall.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, there are moments in the day, moments when we see beyond the ordinary. It was in this pursuit that the arts were created, signposts towards greater knowledge. And that grabbed me. Something in that rang so true at my core. And for me, I'd been raised in a very black and white system. The States, the culture, the way the schools are, everything is about getting the right answer. And so I started this pursuit from that of where can my art be? What can art do? And I ended up finding a different college to transfer to that I felt challenged in. I went there and I started asking them my questions about art as being something deeper, and I came away with more questions, and they had answered what I already asked, and I knew that was the path I needed to go down, even though it was scary because I wasn't going to be the best artist there. I wasn't going to be the best student, but I could grow. And so I took that leap and I went to this school. And at that school, they taught me that there is not a right answer, there's a right relationship with your art. And so every time that we sat down, we started with drawing because we wanted to learn to see that when we're creating art, it gives us a chance to stop time where you're no longer aware of it anymore and all you're doing is feeling an exact connection with that piece. So we would sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil, and we would get to where we felt like our paper was actually touching what was in front of us, say these flowers right here. And as our pencil traveled on the paper, it would feel like our eye was also tracing at the same speed. And the goal was to go the speed of our eye to where we could actually connect with what the actual petal did and feel what it was like, to feel the flow of that petal, what type of line it wanted to be, where it wanted to fit. And building a connection with these different things was like starting new relationships, those conversations. And so we had to surrender our idea of what we thought we should make in art. We weren't copying other artist styles. We weren't going and planning out what we were going to do. We were supposed to respond intuitively in the moment to whatever was around us and just start drawing it, painting it, experimenting with it. And that was completely different than my background and what I had been surrounded by, and it awakened the artist in me.
You said you didn't want people to look at your art and feel inferior.
Yeah.
And art is about the relationship
Yes.
with the piece. So looking at what you've created here, for example, can I ask you, what do you want people to feel when they engage this art, and what is your relationship, or what was your relationship with this piece when you were creating it?
So with this piece, because of all of the time that I've spent connecting with the world around me that is physical, I'm able to go back and forth between an intuitive response of letting the paint be paint, letting it play, letting it have life, and then putting a more definitive mark where I know something belongs in that space from my relationship with an actual image from the world. And going back and forth between these two, I'm able to marry my physical and spiritual experience with flame trees, with the sky, and with the paint itself.
And is there a particular response or feeling you wanted people to have in viewing this piece, or is it individual?
I really do believe it's individual, because I believe everything has meaning in this earth, and much deeper meaning than our eyes can see, and everyone has different eyes that they're seeing through. That's the beauty of art, is that everyone who really does dig into visual art and do the work to find their own voice, is that it shows you how they see the world in a unique way, and people can connect with that. I also believe that your own experiences with flame trees or red or flowers or night or wind or any moment in this piece would cause you to have specific feelings. But my goal whenever I create a piece is not necessarily to control my viewer in any way, but to express the depth of my experience in seeing that and see how it connects with them.
What do you feel about this piece? What does it invoke in you?
So for me, I had some rough things happen in my life to where when I was a child, I loved the night. I thought it was the most beautiful thing, and I would sneak out at night and enjoy the shadows and the wind and the sound in the trees. And then I had some things happen where I began to fear the night. And the sketchbook here actually was where I started going out, and because of that fear, I was driven to try to draw and find these places at night. And what I love about the night when it comes to art is that it edits out reality. When I look in the day, there's so much information coming at me, it's a little overwhelming. And coming from my background of perfectionism and doing every single leaf and every little thing, I wanted to find a way to let go and see things in a different light, where everything wasn't the same depth and the same level of detail. So that way it was more like a song or a dance, where it had slow and fast moments. And there was a feeling of space and depth because of that relationship.
We were chatting before the show about what we wanted people to walk away with.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I wanted people to feel, hopefully with your encouragement, to feel free
Yes.
to pick up a pen or a pencil or some paint and just paint with as imperfect as it starts.
Exactly.
And enjoy the moment, experience the moment. And you had said something to the effect of you wanted them to feel the moment, or to feel the relationship, or to, what do you want people to really get out of our chat today?
I want people to feel freedom. I want them to realize that they can, right now, in this world right now, there's a lot of scary things going on. There's a lot of stress in the air. We all feel it. And it is through connection and relationship that we overcome fear. And right now there's a massive feeling of fear just kind of under the surface. And art is a very safe place to connect and build relationship. But it is the same with life. We used to say art is life and life is art. I want people to feel that they can actually reject division, let go of the beliefs that are holding them back from love and connection, let go of any beliefs about themselves, about others, and really experience these moments like this under a flame tree. This could just be a fleeting memory in someone's mind, but for me, this moment at AMP is seared into my brain because I sat with it longer than those moments under the tree. I went into my studio, and over a few days, I played and I layered paint and materials to actually feel like the moment of being under that tree. And because I did that, I now have a stronger connection with that moment.
We're chatting today with local artist Victoria Sewell. We'll be back with more after this break.
Looking for resources about Marianas history, culture, and more? Well, check out the Northern Marianas Humanities Council's collection. Our extensive video, audio, and photographic library can be found on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at 670 Humanities. Or check out the written resources on our website at nmhcouncil.org. And for those who prefer a good book, we also have a selection of local publications for purchase. So, dive in, explore, and share your comments as we navigate the human experience together.
Welcome back. Victoria, could I ask you to share a little bit more about your personal story and how art has played a role in your healing journey?
Yeah. I think I didn't realize how much I needed to be healed. I didn't realize how much fear I was carrying. I didn't realize how sick I'd gotten until it was really bad. And for me, I was in junior high and I started to not be able to do the same amount as other kids. By the time I was 21,
physically?
Yeah, I was struggling with energy and having seizures that they couldn't really explain, and really freak things happening with my body with neuropathy, and those things came and gone based on stress in life. And when I was first really sick, when I had to really face it, that you are so sick, you can barely walk, that you're laying your head down in classes, that this is not something you can muscle through anymore. It doesn't matter how independent or strong you think you are. I was in my studio and there was this jar that had gotten covered with all of these beautiful inks. And I was just really upset that that jar was so beautiful and I felt so broken, and I broke the jar. And then I felt like gluing together the pieces with hot glue, and it created this weird little monstrosity. But as the hot glue was flowing, I fell in love with the flow, and I started pouring it into water, and then I started drawing it on paper, and then I realized I could spray paint the hot glue and it felt right to me. It felt like how I was seeing the world at the time. And so I ended up with these murky neuron-looking pieces that people saw. I named the first one Silence because I was so upset over the silence when I was trying to find answers, when I was digging into faith, when I was looking to God, when I was asking people around me, and there were so many limitations, and I just had to trust the journey. And my first job in the States was really rough because they did not want us to listen to our body. They wanted us to come in sick, and there was a disjointedness to where I got even sicker. And then I moved to Saipan, and the culture was so much healthier for me because suddenly listening to your body is just how you're supposed to be. You don't rest so that you can work tomorrow. You rest because you're human, and rest is part of a cycle of healing and recovery and existence. And it really changed my framework on that. And my art got a lot lighter. I then had to go back.
What do you mean by lighter?
Before, it looked like neurons, like you were swimming through some kind of kelp forest or like algae above your head. Like there was a bright light behind them, but you couldn't quite reach it with all of the webbing in front of you. And suddenly, instead of the webbing, there were more of like streams of color, and the darkness started to dissipate. I had to go back to the States for a family emergency, and I got really sick again, being back in that environment again. And I found an incredible program that taught me breath work and presence. And that was really incredible. And then I came back to Saipan, and I found a knowledgeable person here who really helped me with seeing the pattern of that presence growing into something bigger than myself. And I was able to, as I let go of there's not a right answer, there's a right relationship, I'm letting go of all of these beliefs that before I was trying to fight against them and go against them because I knew that there was something that didn't feel right to me, but it wasn't working because it was like a self-violence. I was trying to force something that wasn't ready to be let go yet. And then as I came out of my thinking with those beliefs being so black and white, living here, as I began to lean into what is my body naturally guiding to me, what is my spirit guiding me to, what is intuition guiding me to, it really allowed me to let go of the beliefs that were holding on to fear. And then that allowed me to face those fears, which was scary, and then release those. And when those fears fell away, my body was able to do what it was naturally meant to do, which was heal. And so something that doctors couldn't fix was able to be resolved. And it's been incredible to be able to witness that, to feel it, and to know that that is something that everyone can do. Yeah.
It just speaks to the connection of mind, body, heart, and soul
Yeah.
that you've described.
Yeah, and with art, when I was first creating those dark, murky pieces, I didn't understand what was holding me back and why I was sick. I didn't understand the fear I was carrying, the beliefs that I had that were trapping me in that fear at all. And art was able to show me. Art, for me, visually, helps me find answers. It leads me to words, and then words lead me to art. And I have this beautiful cycle in my life that in the end helps me find truth.
It's kind of like you were describing earlier, not controlling the art and
Yeah,
dictating what it's going to
exactly.
be, but allowing it to almost speak to
Yes.
you in a way.
Yeah.
So what does your artwork look like today? Knowing that an artist is always evolving,
Sure.
trying different mediums, but you kind of described what one of your first art pieces looked like.
Yeah.
What are you working on today, and what's the feeling, maybe?
The feeling of my art is life and depth. I'm not trying to, my goal whenever I'm painting my pieces now is not to finish one point at once at all. I want to be working on the entire thing until the whole piece as a body exists the way it needs to be. So looking for that right relationship, not a right answer thing. I'm not sitting and copying exactly. I look at my image that's inspiring me. It can be a not very good quality phone image sometimes. Sometimes it's a better image from my husband's camera. But I'll have this image in front of me, and I'll sit and I'll look for all of the color and the dark areas, and then I will expressively throw that into the piece. And then from there I build and I build and I wait until the very end to add the light, to add that like freedom and life at the very end. And I think that that's really my focus now, is light and color and the illusion of space and edges and boundaries in and of itself. Something that when you first start drawing is you think that, oh, I need to draw this exactly, and all you're focusing on is this. But what you're missing is this. All of this empty space around something is just as much a part of the piece. And so you're only looking at half the picture, just like I was doing with life.
I have to say, when we first met a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and we don't socialize. I think that was like our second conversation, and we've only had, maybe that was the last time we talked.
Yeah.
But honestly, I felt, my impression of you is that you are a very confident woman.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the most confident women I've met, because, and the reason I felt this, feel free to shoot down my theory,
Okay.
is you seem very self-aware and very at peace
Yeah.
with who you were, and that makes sense now with you describing what you do, quote unquote, as a career, or what you do with art.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. It's surrender. I'm not trying to control my life. I'm not trying to control my art anymore. I'm willing for there to be something bigger than myself.
If we could speak to our viewers and listeners who probably, like me, have been somewhat of a perfectionist and wanted to control the art and wanted it to be perfect, give us some tips or some guidance getting started on using art as healing. Where should we start?
I personally definitely believe what I was explaining with line contour earlier with the flower is a fantastic exercise anyone can do with a pencil and paper at home. And there is a lot that will do actually for your brain development too, because you're developing a part of the brain, that is more emotional, that has to deal with space, is one that we neglect a lot in society now, and we're so focused on developing the part of the brain that has to do with speech and facts and absolutes and doing. And when you're actually taking the time to build the spatial part of your brain and then be able to figure out how to play with that space in your work, it benefits you in more ways than just art. So that's a great one to start with. The other thing I would highly recommend, I love water-soluble materials. So you can look up, there are many different ones. You have like crayons, all kinds of things where you can start on your canvas and actually just have something there and let it be big and expressive at first, and wait to use small brushes and add tiny details until the end. Work with your darkest colors in every area first, and then wait to add those lights at the very end. And it's really freeing. I honestly believe play is the best thing you can do to grow as an artist. Because if you're not enjoying it, what's the point? We have cameras now, we have all of these things that could do the work, but the point is for you to have the experience, to have the connection. So if you're able to just play, one of the things that is a fantastic exercise you can do for yourself, make sure that you have true primary red, which is a magenta, like a cyan and a lemon yellow, and with that you can mix a lot of colors. If you're able to afford a bigger set, that's amazing, but if you have those three, that's really important. And make a color wheel and just see all of the colors. So I love having people mix their colors to create like a number line going between the different color waves. So like here's a red with more yellow, a middle red, a red with more blue, a blue with more red, and continuation like that. And then try mixing the opposite colors together and see how they relate, because when you mix opposite colors together, it creates a more natural version. So you can mix a little bit of green into red if you look at a color wheel, and it will become a very natural red, or a little bit of red into green, and it becomes a very natural tree-colored green. Add some white and see how it makes things creamy, not always just lighter, and then just play. Once you can see, you want to push yourself to see what your materials can do through playing with them as well. And then I love finding a balance between letting my students play and then respond to something real because of the growth that they get from that.
Play. I love that. Anybody can play.
Yeah.
And the way you were describing the, what do you call it when you look at the object and then you let your
blind contour.
Blind contour. Yeah. It kind of sounds like a form of meditation.
It is. It definitely is. I've been doing more with meditation recently for the first time, some yoga, different things, and it's crazy to me how similar it feels to blind contour. For me, I suggest blind contour before you start any drawing or painting because it gets you in the right mindset. Because your brain isn't looking at this flower. What happens is the part of our brain that deals with speech will think that it understands how to draw something, and so what will happen is that we won't even be looking at these flowers. We're drawing what we think they are in our head. And then we're upset. We're like, oh, I'm not talented, I'm not an artist, I can't do this. And a lot of people just stop at that point because they don't understand that they can actually develop that spatial side, connect with the flower, and see like the spaces between the flower and how they connect. If this shape is right, then this shape is, this side of this petal is right, and this side of this petal is right, and that one too. And so it completely opens up that part of your mind and allows you to be drawing the natural way that comes from connection and not just drawing, here's a triangle that's kind of longish for each petal, and then it feels very forced and not fluid. It's like people, if you have an assumption, you have to let go of your assumptions and you have to see something for what it is. And art is the same way. The more that you can let go of your assumptions about any of the subjects you're interested in, trees, flowers, people, whatever it is, colors, and actually push yourself to really explore and see what can these things actually do for me in my art, you'll be so much better for it.
Are we giving homework? Are we like telling people like, this might be the first time on the show we've given homework? Pencil, everybody's got a pencil and a piece of paper. Just look at something.
A great one to start with is actually your hand.
Okay, blind contouring, we want to see.
If you can blind contour your hand first, it's easiest because your connection with yourself should be the easiest to feel, right? So if you sit there, you can actually put your pen on your hand, find like a part of your hand that you're interested in, whether it's here, here, whatever. Put your pencil, feel the pressure, then put it on the paper and still feel that pressure when your eye is like boring into your hand right here. And then as your eye is gliding along, if there's a bump, your pencil bumps too. And your pencil should not be going the speed of a hand. The hand can draw like this, should be going the speed of an eye. And if you're doing that, that is blind contour, yes.
and no matter what it looks like, you have succeeded.
Well, you'll be surprised. What you should try first is try drawing it without blind contour, then try blind contour.
Ooh.
Your spacing won't be the same, but the lines will be better.
Victoria, thank you so much. Any final words of advice, counsel, encouragement, wisdom?
I would love to read something I wrote back in school on the sketchbook that I was using at the time to try to stand up to my fear. There is something beautiful about taking the ordinary world with the cacophony of chaos and overwhelming information and silencing the noise by framing it in a way that we remove the context, changing the relationships, and in turn transforming the identity of the thing and how it is perceived. As I scratch the surface of beginning to understand the nature of various mediums in art, I fall in love with the nature of art once again. The ability to silence the world enough to hear the whispers ingrained in everything that surrounds us is such a gift. Art takes the real world and makes it surreal through a soul-level response. It takes us aback if we are only willing to be still in the silence. I also strongly believe that no human was meant to hear it all or see it all, but if we are faithful to the few things we were meant to see, experience, and befriend, then how we perceive and process life will be changed. In turn, how others see will be changed. Art becomes a byproduct of a way of living, processing, and thinking. The meaning is not in one successful piece, but in the journey, a body of work made up of weak and strong points that documents the journey of living. Each piece an exploration of a relationship between soul and subject, a continuation on another sheet of paper. Art becomes a way of life that results in work, because it becomes the way we seek truth, cope with loss, and experience highs and lows of human experience. A way of learning to see with our soul, not just our eyes.
Thank you for sharing today, and if I could describe it, helping us see how we can use art to connect more with ourselves.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our guest today has been Victoria Sewell, talking about art and healing. She's one of our local artists. This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Berry.
Your Humanities Half Hour has been made possible in part by a major grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Democracy demands wisdom. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities. For more information or to share your thoughts, contact the Northern Marianas Humanities Council at nmhcouncil.org or on social media at 670 Humanities. That's 670 Humanities.